Stacy. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
I'm great. I'm so happy to have this conversation with you today.
Me too. I'm excited about the podcast. Shall we explain that change of clothes, the sudden changes and what's happening?
Okay, so the when we recorded our podcast, we actually forgot to record since the beginning. So we had to meet again to record the very first part, and here we are. Well, so the idea was to have a conversation about entering the world of machine translation, talk about your experience, my experience.
So do you have like a set of questions? How do you want to go around about it?
I thought we would just like discuss our experience in entering like field of machine translation. Mine was a bit weird because I'm not a machine translation expert, and I will try to like tell my experience how it went, and then you can tell your
Yeah, sounds
during
good
the
to me.
conversation.
And plus, I'm dying to find out how you ended up with Custom.MT anyway. And then the whole travel from, I think, Spain to Russia, from Russia to back to Spain, and that to Mexico. So, yeah, I'd love to hear the full story.
Yeah. So let's just say that this is my really first podcast, so don't mind my nerves. I don't know how to host the podcast, and you're head of production in Custom.MT right now, right?
Yeah, I can tell you this story. That was actually a lot of fun.
Yeah, please, Bart.
So
Please tell me.
I was a project manager, and I've been overseeing all the projects and working on this. But at the same time, I kind of got interested in, like conferences and later development and things that I could do for the custom tea for the company. And so that was the moment when Konstantin decided to bring me to this big conference in Russia. So me, Konstantin, and Philip, who's another co-founder, we all get together. We went to the conference, and then I had this public talk on how we trained, and that's very impressive, how we trained 150 engines at that time.
Wow.
Right now, it's a lot more
That's a
this
big
time,
number.
but yeah, that's so impressive. So he was like, look, here's the impressive number, here's your time slot. Can you just go and give like a brief presentation? And
Okay.
I did, and I guess he really liked it because at the end of this presentation, we were just like standing somewhere, like drinking coffee, like it was like a 5 minutes coffee break, and he was like, "You're so good. I will introduce you as a production director." I was like, "I like it. I can add this to my LinkedIn." So yeah, please do.
Yeah, that's so impressive. I mean, you started with Custom.MT not so many months ago, right? And you became head of production, so you really impressed him. That's
I
great.
guess. Yes, it's been seven. I've been with Custom.MT for 7 months.
Yeah, for sure. Okay.
I'm waiting for a year, like a year celebration date, so we can all like open champagne and I can officially say, yeah, that's been a year.
Yeah, that would be great. I hope to be in Russia then. How did you start with machine translation?
As everybody does, by accident.
By accident, right?
I'm just kidding. Yeah. Sorry. So what happened? Again, like Philip kind of headhunted me. I used to work as a tax consultant, and that was my first ever job after graduating from a bachelor's degree. And it was a very interesting period of my life, but at some point I just realized that's not really something that I wanted to do. And then I met Philip, and I think they were looking at Custom.MT, they were looking for a project manager. So we had a very nice interview, which was even less of an interview, more like a conversation. And he was like, look, I see that you have like zero technical backgrounds in this area, but you're interested. So how about we try this out and see how it goes? And I just get very excited because I read something about like NLP, AI. I was like, oh, that sounds so cool. And I had a little bit of language experience as well. So I used to work as a translator at the time, also as an interpreter, business conferences. So I was like, oh, sounds like something that I can understand. But little did I know it was difficult. So
but so you had no technical background. How was the first approach with machine translation? Machine translation could appear so say technical, and it was really hard to me at the really very beginning because I felt like they were talking Arabic, completely another language. So how was your like first approach, like from a translator to machine translation?
But at the very beginning, I failed all the interview questions, so I did know very little about it. And I think they gave me about 2 or 3 weeks as a time for me to just get into the topic. So I started doing a lot of research also, and that's kudos to my amazing team that we work with right now because they actually explained a lot of things to me. So I was personally a little bit interested in IT before, so I had like basic understanding, like programming, computing, like a very, very basic one. And I guess just me
okay.
doing research and also my team really, really helping me out there. That was the thing.
That's really great, because I mean, to have a team that supports you and that actually encourages you to expand your knowledge to something that you don't know before, and you just can do it while working, it's really great. I mean, it's not something that you can find it so easily right now.
Absolutely. I still rely a lot.
The majority of company, they just ask you for 5 to 10 years of experience. So to actually give experience to young people and expand their knowledge, it's really great.
Yeah, I know. I also think it's interesting that you mentioned that machine translation is extremely technical. That's something that we face a lot when our clients first contact us, and sometimes they're different, types of clients, but sometimes they'll be terrified of how technical and difficult it is. Or we have a different group of clients that think that, hey, it's extremely easy. I've seen that in my CAD tool. I can just easily implement it. So I think there is truth in like both opinions. The thing is, it is not like rocket science difficult. So what we do, it's quite technically advanced, but I would say, it's not like incredibly difficult in terms of like you can't understand what's happening there. But at the same time, I think a lot of the problems that we face right now are the problems that are not in the manual. And what I'm trying to say by it, very often it should work very straightforward. Like you have a big red button, you're supposed to press it. That's the manual says it. Press the button, it is going to work. And I'm like happy, like, okay,
like that's automatic, right?
Yeah, and that it just doesn't. And you're like, oh, what do I do when it doesn't work? And then you go to the menu and there's just no explanation for what to do when it doesn't work. And you're like, oh, that's a problem. So we have to like fix things that are not supposed to be broken, if you know what I mean.
Just I think that it appears difficult to people that are not actually, they don't have the basic knowledge, or they just can appear difficult. But then when it comes to it, I like to associate machine translation with everyday life. I mean, if it's not there, maybe you can complain, like you just pretend that it's going to be there, and that's it. I mean, so I really like to approach like machine translation with trying to associate with the everyday little stuff that helps you.
I really like this approach. Yeah, I think that's just a perfect sums up of how it should be working. Absolutely. Do you think, and that's something that I like to do, I think of machine translation as a very useful tool, but we're given the linguists. I really don't like all this conversation about, like AI replacing the human translator and all that. Because I think, language is still, it's a very creative industry, even though there are a lot of rules, but it's still something creative. It just can't be, like soulless. And machine translation, I personally see it as an amazing tool which just enables translators and interpreters, to be more efficient, to have less stress every single day. But I just really like thinking about it as like, oh, we're helping those people by providing them with the best tools possible, instead of like, oh, we're trying to substitute them. No,
yeah, I totally agree. I mean, it's not replacing people. I mean, I think it's just basic evolution, once they were just people translating it, but why don't approach something that makes it better while try to open to new technologies? That's what we are doing right now.
Yeah, exactly. It's just, I don't know, it's like balancing a wheel or something when you just, everything becomes so much easier. Exactly.
It's just making life easier to people and make it so more accessible to everyone, like, and not taking so much time, because time is really precious. Do you think it's important for a linguist or someone in machine translation and in localization system, like industry, to know languages, like to speak many languages?
Well, I don't want to give a very vague and poetic answer, but honestly, I think knowing languages might not necessarily be the very practical standpoint, because again, depending on where you work exactly, if you're like in the management, or if you're not a linguist directly, so you might not actually need to use a lot of languages. It gives you a very good insight into this culture. And I think if you're trying to bring people together, you really need to be open-minded and kind of like expand your understanding of the word. And in that sense,
I agree.
So I think understanding a language is very helpful, just to understand how people in this country or in this region think, how, who they are. So for that reason,
how to approach them as well. Like, I think it's really important in a business, like, to know how to approach people. Cultures are so different, and they can be different even when doing business. And so that's the magic of languages, no? It was really an interesting conversation to have with you, and I was really happy. And I really look forward to have another conversation of the same kind if that's possible. And I hope it was interesting for people that will look at our video, our podcast, and listen to it. And if people will write down their experience and in entering machine translation industry, I will be really happy to listen to their stories.
Yeah, likewise. And I hope it's to be continued kind of story.
Yeah, sure.